At Buckingham Palace, a scene was about to unfold that no one could have predicted. A martial arts champion, fueled by pride and overconfidence, dared to mock the silent strength of a royal guard, only to discover that true power wears no expression. What started as a display of arrogance would end in a lesson, witnessed by hundreds, a lesson about discipline, honor, and quiet resilience. Stay with us as we reveal how a single act of disrespect led to a stunning moment of truth. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more powerful true stories, and tell us in the comments, would you have seen past the uniform as to recognize the real strength behind it? On that cool morning in London, Buckingham Palace stood, as always, framed in regal grandeur. Tourists gathered, eager to witness the timeless spectacle of the changing of the guard. Among them stood Ryan Chen, not merely another face in the crowd. At 32, Ryan's reputation was formidable. He was a three-time international martial arts champion, a man whose social media boasted about his undefeated status and his chain of elite training academies across California. Dressed sharply in a designer tracksuit and flashing a custom Rolex, Ryan embodied the modern ideal of victory, fast, flashy, and proudly self-assured. Yet, among the gathering crowd, many of them seniors, veterans, and families, Ryan's energy felt different. His swagger revealed not confidence, but a dangerous arrogance. Where most saw the royal guards as enduring symbols of discipline, sacrifice, and honor, Ryan saw only relics of a bygone era, men frozen in place, easy targets for mockery. Unaware, or perhaps uninterested, in the depth of tradition before him, Ryan was about to learn that true strength often hides behind the calmest facade, and that real warriors do not need applause to prove their worth. As tourists lifted their cameras to capture the iconic scene, Ryan seized the moment to perform. He moved with the grace and precision of a man long accustomed to competition. He circled guard William Harrington, a soldier standing at rigid attention in his scarlet tunic and bearskin cap, throwing a series of mock punches, executing flashy kicks that stopped mere inches from the stoic guard's face. Ryan's voice rose above the murmur of the crowd. "See, real fighters are always alert, always moving," he declared, gesturing at Harrington as if presenting a museum exhibit. "Frozen like that, you're just asking to be beaten." Some tourists smiled awkwardly. Others frowned, sensing the disrespect. A few quietly moved away, their respect for the guard too deeply ingrained to tolerate such mockery. Yet Ryan, caught in the glow of his own bravado, mistook the gathering silence for admiration. He continued to demonstrate his superiority, pivoting gracefully, explaining the flaws in the guard's posture, comparing it to the dynamism of modern combat sports. But there was one lesson Ryan Chen had never been taught: the discipline of standing still, the strength required not to react to provocation, and the power that comes from patience over pride. Arrogance, as it often does, bred recklessness. Mockery was no longer enough for Ryan. He needed to prove a point. With a sudden flourish of bravado, he launched into a spinning heel kick, a move honed over years of championship training. This time, he did not pull the strike. His foot connected cleanly with Harrington's face. The crowd gasped in one unified breath. Cameras dropped. Conversation ceased. The guard's iconic bearskin cap flew into the crisp morning air, tracing a slow, almost surreal arc before, landing on the ancient stone courtyard with a muted thud. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Where moments before there had been light-hearted curiosity, now there was horrified silence. Parents shielded their children's eyes. Elderly veterans shook, their heads in dismay. Respect, the invisible fabric that had held the scene, together, had been torn. In that instant, Ryan Chen crossed a line, not merely of protocol, but of honor. He had not simply attacked a man. He had struck at a tradition, centuries in the making, a tradition that demanded endurance, patience, and silent strength. And now, the lesson he was about to learn would not come through not through words or warnings, but through action. For a moment, time itself seemed to hesitate. The world held its breath. Then Guard William Harrington moved, not with rage, not with hesitation, but with cold, efficient precision. He stepped forward in one fluid motion, bridging the space between himself and Ryan, with the swiftness of a trained warrior. Without fanfare or brutality, he seized Ryan's arm, twisted it expertly behind his back, and brought the stunned champion to his knees. It was not an attack. It was not retaliation. It was controlled and pure, disciplined, military control. The crowd watched in silent awe. Ryan, who had faced the best in global martial arts tournaments, found himself utterly overpowered, not by flash or aggression, but by measured professionalism. Every attempt he made to resist was met with effortless counters. Every movement he tried was anticipated, neutralized, and subdued. Harrington's face remained composed. His body language was firm, but never excessive. His mission was clear: protect, subdue, and maintain dignity, both his own and that of the tradition he represented. And so, in the very heart of London, amid the tourists and stone facades of Buckingham Palace, Ryan Chen, a man who believed himself unbeatable, learned a new and humbling truth. Ceremony does not erase capability, it reveals it. As palace security personnel moved swiftly to take custody of Ryan, an elderly man stepped forward from the crowd. Colonel James Thornton, retired Royal Marines, battle-hardened and quietly respected, addressed the bystanders with a voice that carried the weight of experience. He explained what many had never realized. Guard William Harrington was not simply an ornament of British tradition. He was a decorated soldier, a veteran of multiple tours in Afghanistan and Syria. He had served with the Special Reconnaissance Regiment, one of Britain's most elite military units, men who operated in the shadows, who carried the quiet burdens of dangerous missions most would never hear about. The stillness Ryan had mocked was not emptiness or fear. It was discipline, a discipline forged in battlefields, in desert sands, and in city streets where hesitation cost lives. Standing motionless under the gaze of 1,000 tourists was not a sign of weakness. It was the final proof of strength, the ability to endure, to restrain, to wait. The tourists, many of them older, many veterans themselves, nodded slowly. They understood what others, like Ryan, had missed. Tradition is not stagnant. It is the living memory of those who served before Qian and those who continue to serve today. Inside the security office, Ryan sat alone, his confidence shattered. When Harrington entered, Ryan rose, the movement automatic. An unconscious show of respect he might once have mocked. Ryan apologized, sincerely, humbly, not just for the kick, but for the ignorance, for failing to recognize the dignity in stillness, the power behind patience, the honor woven into every thread of the Guard's scarlet uniform. Harrington accepted the apology with quiet professionalism. He said little, but he didn't need to. His calm acceptance spoke volumes about what true strength looks like. For Ryan, the lesson would linger longer than any bruises. He realized that the trophies lining his walls, the titles inscribed on certificates, were but a pale shadow of the strength needed to stand silently in service to something greater than oneself. Not all battles are fought with fists. Some are fought and won through quiet resolve. And so, a champion was humbled, not by a superior fighter in the ring, but by a soldier who stood, guard over traditions, over history, and over the enduring values of duty and honor. As afternoon settled over Buckingham Palace, the courtyard slowly returned to its familiar rhythm. But something had shifted, something unspoken yet deeply felt. The tourists who remained lowered their cameras. They moved with greater care, greater respect. Children who had once chattered excitedly now stood quietly, looking up at the guards with new understanding. Guard William Harrington resumed his post, his uniform immaculate, his bearing unshaken, despite the bruise forming. beneath his bearskin cap. He stood not for show, not for photographs, but for the values his service represented. Colonel Thornton, observing the renewed respect among the visitors, allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes, he reflected, the most important lessons are not taught by speeches, nor through textbooks. They are taught through example, through actions that reveal character, discipline, and the enduring spirit of service. The truth that echoed that day was simple, yet profound. True courage does not shout. True honor does not boast. And real strength, the kind that endures long after applause has faded, is found in quiet service, steadfast duty, and humble resolve. In a world often too quick to prize noise over substance, the silent stance of a royal guard remains a powerful living reminder of the strength we must never forget.